Vertical Incubation Center, and our purpose really is to promote and grow private sector aerospace and deep tech industry in Pakistan. We're lucky to be hosted inside Pakistan's first Aerospace Science and Technology Park, which is an initiative of Pakistan Air Force. So we have all the ecosystem ingredients in terms of infrastructure, expertise, access to the right policy makers, everything. So this is the best place to kickstart your aerospace and deep tech journey in Pakistan. I once again welcome you all, and I look forward for an exciting learning event today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Imran. Now I see a lot of curiosity among faces that what really Aerodyne is. So I won't take much time and invite Dr. Sean Lim on the stage to share about what overall Aerodyne is and how we are going to move forward with the event. Yeah. Round of applause. You need to be here and use this.
Can I just be on the stage?
Yeah,
it's okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. Don't worry, my voice is pretty loud. Okay,
you can use this.
Sure. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right. Assalamualaikum. Good morning. Thank you for the privilege to be here at NICAT this morning. It's been a wonderful journey coming to Pakistan. It's my second time in Pakistan. It's after a long journey through 7 countries in less than 18 days. Pakistan is the last stop. I came from Lahore and Islamabad. In fact, my longest part of my entire business trip will be in Pakistan moving forward. And I will share with you some of the reasons why. Some of you may not have heard of Aerodyne. Some of you may have heard of Aerodyne. So allow me to just do a little bit of sharing before we go into our panel session with our very esteemed panelists and also nation builders we have in our fold as well. So I just want to go very quickly about who we are as Aerodyne moving forward. Why are we here, and how do we want to actually work together with the local Pakistani deep tech ecosystem, which for me, after traveling to 57 countries in the past 18 days, I can tell you the hunger for technology, the hunger for progress here is very, very strong. So I'm very excited to be here as a result of that. And this location here, this wonderful location here is a testament to that moving forward. Now, a very quick one. Know Aerodyne. We are the biggest drone service company in the world currently. People always say, Sean, are you lying? He said, what about DJI? Right? And DJI, well, currently is the biggest drone company in the world, but they are the biggest drone manufacturer in the world. So they are like Airbus and Boeing. We are like PIA, for example. We are the airliners and the service providers in the industry. So we are biggest in class globally. We have 16 regional HQs across the globe. Biggest ones is being in Dubai, US, and also in Australia at the moment. And we have business in 45 countries across the world. Although I have a very Chinese face, people always think that we are based somewhere in UK, US, and because of my Chinese face, they think I'm from China. But we are actually 100% Malaysian, including myself. I'm from Malaysia, just of Chinese descent, that's all. But very proudly Malaysian first. So again, over the years, in our expansion, and of course in the last 4 years, we have done very aggressive M&As. We have acquired 9 companies. We are going to acquire even more companies in our run-up to IPO. So we are only 2025 is our run-up to NASDAQ IPO in NASDAQ or in Japan. Moving forward, we are in our Series C funding at the moment, hoping to raise anywhere between 100 to 200 million US dollars in the run-up to our IPO. So massive momentum moving globally. And I think it's really important for us to engage all the countries that we do business with moving forward. So Pakistan is one of them. And of course, one of the reasons we started our business in Pakistan, we actually have been here in stealth mode for about 1 year already in Lahore. And it was primarily for the AI business because you guys are home to some of the best engineers I've seen, to be honest. And Anand Chaudhry, I would like to make a quick introduction to him. He's our director of AI for Aerodyne Group. He's based in Lahore, and of course he's also head of country as well. And of course Asim, who is the head of AI integrations, also based out in Lahore. So a quick shout out to them as well. We have invested in a lot of R&D development capabilities in Pakistan. But over the 1 year, and of course in the process of building very meaningful connections with the Pakistani opportunity in a country of more than 200 million people to also do business. But we don't want to do just business for the sake of doing business. We want to do business wherever we go, whichever country that we are in. We do business with the idea of empowering local ecosystems and local societies. That is the premise of how we work. When we work locally, we local partners, we give them the tools to fight and scale, we give them the drone ecosystem and expertise that we have learned over the past 7-8 years, making us the biggest in the world. We transfer knowledge, we transfer expertise, we transfer technology, and we handhold a lot of local ecosystem partners so that they can scale up and grow very quickly in the ecosystem and become local resilient ecosystem partners. And this is why we are here today at NICAT as well, because you guys are home to a very big host of such partners in the region. So we are hoping to actually scale up very quickly in Pakistan. In my 7 or 8 days I'm going to be here in Pakistan. Today is day number 4 actually. We are meeting with universities, meeting with government regulators, we're meeting with people from the clients, we're meeting with investors, we're meeting with in fact we had the privilege to meet the biggest VC fund in Pakistan. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with Fatima Ventures or Fatima Gobi through their association. So we work with them very closely because through their association they are also our investors in Malaysia as well. We build the common connection in Pakistan moving forward. And of course, being fellow Muslim countries, this is the common connection that we share moving forward. To talk too much because I know we all have an attention span of a TikTok video nowadays, so I'm just going to allow you guys to run through very quickly about what we do in a video format about what Aerodyne does. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're asking what businesses we do, we are involved in agriculture, we are involved in power line inspection, we are involved in solar gas pipelines. I can go on, I'll run out of breath by the end of it. So I'll let the video do the talking because there's a lot more interesting. The last shot you saw there is our Aerodyne campus all the way in Cyberjaya in Malaysia. So again, if any of you wish to visit our campus, we'll show you the tour of the few thousand drones we have in our inventory, our pilots, our operations, our technology. We're more than happy to share with you also the local ecosystem and connect you with a bunch. We are also enablers for a lot of people who wish to do business in Malaysia moving forward, connecting you with our clients. If we can find a synergy to do business together. So we're more than happy not just to be here in Pakistan, but we're also happy for you to be a gateway to not just Malaysia, but also the 45 countries that we are based globally as well, providing we can find a good synergy working together. So in terms of rankings, we are number 1 in the world. We are always asked the other players in the region. So you would think that they're all dominated by American and British companies, but apparently not, except for number 2, which is Terra. And the rest are all from, the rest down the line from American and British or European companies. And we are at least bigger than number 2 and number 3 in the world combined in terms of market cap, size, revenue moving forward. So we are pretty stable as where we are. And of course, we're very proud to be Asians. Fellow Asians, there are very few of us that have reached unicorn status. So we're very proud of us being able to represent Asia. Right. So moving last but not least, I also don't want to take too much time. That's a very quick overview. We have an executive connect and lunch later on with some of our invited members to discuss how we can actually enable more business together from this platform. But today, more than anything else, we want to talk about the larger picture as well. Because for us, Aerodyne, when we are here in Pakistan, we don't just want to just do business strictly. Of course, doing business is important, but also trying to understand the ecosystem better, the players better, the partners better, what are the enablers, what are the blockers, what are the moving stepping stones to move forward together with the local ecosystem partners. So in order to do that, we think that it's really important to have this conversation ongoing. We do this very commonly in Malaysia, across the world. We work with think tanks, policy makers, to try to understand what are the goals that they're trying to achieve, what are the enablers that we can also assist as part of the journey. So again, today we're here for a moderated panel session, of which I will be the moderator. We have had the opportunity to invite some very esteemed and very distinguished gentlemen from the industry, veterans, and of course in my short conversation with these gentlemen, very quickly, you guys must be very proud to have nation builders among your ranks. I think having nation builders is a very important part to help the economy grow in such a very critical time of your country's history. So I would like to do a very quick introduction to these three gentlemen. Mr. Javid Iqbal, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of the Special Technology Zones Authority, quick enabler. Thank you, Mr. Javid, and in fact, I will invite you to the stage moving forward. Right, moving on, we have also Air Vice Marshal retired Asad Ikram, who is the Principal Advisor for NICAT and Director General for Corporate Connectivity. Thank you for joining us today. Last but not least, we have also Mr. Mansur Malik, which is the President of GIS Plus. Please welcome. Is this a little bit problematic? Yeah. I cannot hear. Testing 1, 2, 3. I hope the voice is good at the back. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, first and foremost, for being here today. Very proud to be associated with you guys and to be introduced to you guys, although in a very short morning session. We hope that this won't be the first nor the last engagement that we have with you guys moving forward. So again, I think the theme that we want to discuss today is about how do we merge aerospace technologies together with the modernization and digital transformation that the countries are currently undergoing. Historically, aerospace has always been the seeding of the most advanced technologies in the world, and then it is from there they proliferate back into civilian technology or into wider consumer and commercial technology. They have always been on the frontier of things. And we see that, of course, in this massive digital transformation push globally, and of course Pakistan is part of it as well, there are a lot of technologies that can also be injected and passed through into the economy as well, into the startups, into the deep tech ecosystem. And of course, you guys being veterans in the ecosystem for many years, you've seen a variety of technologies. Maybe I will start very quickly by maybe inviting any of you to share a little bit of what are the most interesting innovations that have come into the picture, especially in helping Pakistan develop and further its course on the infrastructure industry, because like it or not, in a country of 200 million, infrastructure is absolutely crucial to keep and sustain the entire population moving forward. So what are some of the greatest innovations you've seen in Pakistan coming locally to bring that forth? Maybe I will invite Mr. Mansur first.
Okay, personally when we were setting up the 21st Century University with the name of NUST in Islamabad, so we picked up two major institutions to be jump-started. One was the first technology incubation center in the country, TIC, and we defined all the digital technologies which we could help out next 5 or 10 years, and that's how we jump-started TIC. And along with TIC, we also set up again the first in the country Institute of GIS. These are the two institutes which actually jump-started, and the digital sort of technology had an ubiquitous presence, Okay. So GIS, found its way in and out. Now we have an election coming up, GIS-based. Before that, census, GIS-based. Poverty elevation, GIS-based. So now both these technologies have actually entered into the mindset, call it, or into the society through technology. So these are the two examples I wanted to share.
I think those are also very much the global example. It's not just in Pakistan, but a lot of global technologies also started seeding their initial work on the GIS side as well. So thank you for sharing, Mr. Mansur. Maybe Mr. Asad Ikram, maybe invite you a little bit on to share your experience here.
Yes, I would agree with Mansur Sahab here. Primarily, I think what's happened is in the last about 80 years of mankind, I think the invention of the transistor was a major shift from the way or the sort of speed that we used to work on. Because that's where computing came in. And with computing, the rate of change of technology changed drastically. And I think in Pakistan, we were early starters. We had computers come in the banking sector, and PIA, the Air Force also had one earlier on in the early 60s. And I think we have been on that path pretty okay, but more so as users, and we continue to do so. But that's true for most of the countries in the world, other than I think the Americans.
Right.
We've all been using computers to make our life move faster. And then when you have this telecom come in, so that's made that computing available to each and every person, starting from having those mainframes. Now you have a computer in your palm.
Right.
And that brings in a great opportunity of changing the way we can connect and work together. So the end result should always be more productivity.
That's right.
Easier governance, more facilities to the citizen. And we here in Pakistan, I think we have, even though it's been, like you said, a bit jumpy ride, but I think we've been catching on with that.
Correct.
We have a fairly good telecom infrastructure, even though there is still a lot more that will be wanted, especially when you want to go on to things like using technologies like drones, which are so important these days, the way that you said, because for drones to be able to use them over a larger area, you need to have them connected to a control station, whether it's human control or AI control.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's where you need you need positive connectivity.
Correct.
And as there is more data, especially things like GIS applications, and that is again a sort of an offshoot of things like inspections that you want to do, you need a lot of imagery that has to go
Large
to back,
volume
right?
of data.
So that's you need more volume of data. And then if you want to be able to control a drone and to take it further, to be able to do an operation on a human being remotely, you need 5G.
Correct.
Because that's where latency becomes extremely important. So I think technology is just so important. In our case, I think we have been slow in terms of 5G. And the various reasons for that, most of them are economic in nature.
Yep.
Because when you want companies to invest, it has to make commercial sense. And it makes commercial sense when people have money to spend.
Yep. Buying power as well.
So we've had a bit of a problem, but then the government is aware of that. We have a plan to roll out 5G, but again, that economics is coming in at this point in time.
Right. I think that you brought up a very good point about 5G, because as a global push for 5G is happening at the moment, companies across the world, I think Australia is one of them that we had experienced, where they're installing huge amounts of equipment on the towers, and doing tower audits in a fast amount of time has been a challenge to them. And of course, the fact that the towers are providing connectivity as well, and our drones are actually operating on the towers, providing tower audits and inspection, was a double gain on both sides. They made business from us, we also made business from them. So it was a very synergistic sort of technology application moving forward. And of course, Javid, yourself, I'd like to also bring your thoughts into the technology fray as well, and maybe share a little bit of your insights.
Sure. Thank you for having us, and welcome to Pakistan again. We're at a very interesting precipice right now, especially with, the third industrial revolution now dovetailing into the fourth, right? Pakistan's unique because we've built the rails of third and fourth at the same time. We're almost sort of taking that journey together. And both have some infrastructure. Some are centric around, is this on? Okay. What's interesting is that
And then we're building, others have already built, so we have those examples to look at as well. So in our case, into tech Pakistan, while realizing that we missed the boat on few of these ecosystems that bring it together. Technological advancements, etc. But it was done as pockets of excellence. And this was done in 2021, exactly 2 years ago, where an act of parliament was passed to bring these ecosystems of technology together as within zones, where specialized incentives were going to be given to organizations that wanted to do two things. One, build infrastructure for tech, and two, do tech businesses and enable them as well. So this is one of the zones as well. This is a beautifully done infrastructure, rivals anything in the world. I've seen many in Silicon Valley. Last week I was fortunate enough to see the garage in Riyadh, which is the largest incubation center in the world. This is better, I would say. Just last week we were right there. So there is a lot that we are also starting to either play catch up on, or even in some cases better than the others as well. So we're very excited to bring a lot of these infrastructures, policies, skill sets, companies, hardware, software, enabled on 48 technological areas that are listed in our Act and rules to take Pakistan forward. So we're excited to be part of that journey.
Thank you for your input, Javed Sahab. And I think he inadvertently foreshadowed my actually next question to the panel, which is actually talking about the enablers. And there's no way to talk about technology if you don't talk about enablers. So there's no running away, and they're very much intertwined. So when you talk about enablers, of course, Javed Sahab has also talked about the ecosystem and the opportunities on the seeding opportunities or the platforms for all of these to happen. But there's also quite a number of conversations that that also revolve around maturity of the adoption, whether the end users are ready to adopt such technologies, because most of them are run by organizations that have been more than 100 over years, 50 to 100 over years in Pakistan, and that capacity for change is one thing. And also we talk about regulations and also policy building that encourage these technologies to proliferate. So one example is we talk about drones, for example. There is still a need to mature the drone regulations, how to fly drones within Pakistan and all these kind of things moving forward, how to import drones. But that's just one example. I'm sure there are a lot of other deep technology that are also impacted as a result of this maturing process of the regulations. Maybe I can invite now in reverse order Asad Sahab to actually talk about some of these challenges or some of the opportunities rather than challenges. Maybe we put it positively, opportunities to actually build things better as enablers.
Yes, thanks. You see, for adopting any technology or anything for that matter, you always need a sort of a push-pull thing. It can't just be that you have technology and you can't sort of put it on people to use it.
Yep.
They also have to have that urge or understanding of it to start with. What that means is that you have to educate them on that technology or what that technology can do for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think when it comes to things like enablers, the first thing is HR. Now that HR comes in all different forms, right? HR is people who understand how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's again some sort of an HR. There's a certain level of education that you need to impart. Then the people who actually make that technology happen.
Yep.
And then there's a whole ecosystem of that, right? Because once you have technology, you need people who can repair when things go wrong, etc., etc. You also need HR to be able to make policies, right? Because if you don't have the right policies, you can't have technology, come into the country.
Mm.
So what that means is that you need HR to start with on the first layer, the policies, and number 3 is infrastructure, because a lot of technology does need infrastructure. It's just like, you want to have electric vehicles in the country, good, but then electric vehicles also need chargers, right? Charger stations.
Yep, that's right.
So what do you start with? Do you just build a lot of charging stations?
Chicken and egg.
Yeah, it's chicken and egg always, right? So that's the way technology always happens.
Right.
But then the good thing about technology is a lot of times, people say that it's going to take away jobs, etc., etc. Like you have this people talking about AI taking away jobs. My take on this is that it just changes the nature of jobs.
Right.
And even though a lot of people might think that you would move away with low-tech jobs, it really doesn't happen that way. You know, I recall when we had mobile phones come in, and people said, "Oh, it's going to destroy the whole, industry
Pages,
and all that stuff." I know, you had so many shops come up. If you recall, certain people selling, cases for mobiles, earphones, etc. Shops coming up. You can download, music and ringtones, etc., etc. So every technology brings in a different flavor or a different set of jobs also. So you don't have to be, the same. So I think, like I said before, I think HR is extremely important for us to be able to train. And like we were discussing earlier, now the issue is that you have these different generations, right? You have old people like us, who even now, when pressing a button, you want to be sure that nothing's going to go wrong, right?
Yep.
And you have people, the younger guys who just, even babies know how to download something. So I think we need to have policies that help the whole, different generations too. We need to put in policies. You rightly said, now Malaysia has been ahead of us in terms of putting in a removal policy.
Yep.
I saw that, I think, like 3 years ago.
Correct.
But in Pakistan, we have had issues with policy. We can discuss that later on.
Sure.
About what issue do you really have with the UAV policy at this point in time.
Right.
And third, of course, is putting in infrastructure which needs money.
Yep.
And the government has to build in policies that help generate that funding, whether it comes in from the local society or comes in from abroad, irrespective, but the policies have to be, business friendly.
Right.
So to speak.
I think very well summarized, Asas Ahab. And of course, I think to carry on after that, Sir Mansoor, you have seen the world, and I was very delighted to know that you had some dealings in Malaysia once upon a time. Moving forward, and you've probably seen the world in many different angles. How do you put that in comparison and with the enablers that are available in Pakistan at the moment?
Well, we were pleasantly surprised. We went to Malaysian market way back in mid-90s. We saw the concept of Serum and MIMOS. For people who don't know, Serum was the Standards and Industrial Relation Institute of Malaysia. Their industrialization took off because the office was placed directly under the Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad, and MIMOS was their electronics. They went to Germany, Fraunhofer Institute, I visited that place also as well, and they set up state-of-the-art, chips manufacturing in Malaysia. We are talking about 93, 94 time frame. So we saw both of them, and we tried to come back and push our country also, because Pakistan, people who don't know, we in the 50s, we had similar organizations in Pakistan. We had the PIDC, Pakistan Industrial Development Corporation, established in 1952. We had a PICIC, Investment Corporation, established in 53. And we had the R&D set up also as well, So all three organizations, we came back and we were pushing very hard in looking at Serum and MIMOS examples, because we had more than $1 billion trade deficit with Malaysia. So we wanted to do a lot of collaborations. We set up a whole ecosystem of exporting some high-tech, things to Malaysia. But we were working through Mr. Anwar Ibrahim. He was our advocate for that, but he was no more Deputy Prime Minister. We lost that opportunity.
He's not the Prime Minister again.
Yeah, he's the Prime Minister again. Yeah, so we were very happy. And then, not only that, I had read a paper in one of the conferences in Malaysia, and by the name of Technology Triangle, in which we advertised from AWC, how do we collaborate between Pakistan, Turkey and Malaysia. That was way back in 97, 98. So yes, I think a lot of things are in common. You mentioned about the towers. One of your investors, Fatma, they're into tower business, infrastructure.
Yep.
They've got more than 2,000 towers, all the telco companies. We've tried to put sense into them and put in GIS mapping on those towers. You could do that through drones. Yeah, so yeah, Pakistan is there, but adding a little bit more to what Asad said about HR. Pakistan was fortunate to set up the state-of-the-art aeronautical engineering college way back in '65. So our aerospace sector, in fact, is much more ahead in terms of HR than our industry can absorb. So now is the time, what you mentioned, now is the time. We are pushing very hard as part of the founding member of Pakistan Aerospace Council, which are bringing the private sector on board. How do we dovetail the private industrial sector with aerospace technologies? And we're going to talk next also in our conversation. So yeah, we are very excited, and we're trying to close the gap, the third and fourth industrial revolution through these HR. Over the years, thousands of aerospace engineers and avionics engineers perhaps doing only digital work. Fine, that digital work is also important, IT is also important, telco is also important, but the most important thing is aerospace technologies. How do we take it to the next level? And that's we are trying to do our group. We set up incubation center. We had more than 10,000 startups all over the Pakistan in IT, telecom, mentored, and now we are looking at aerospace industry for growth of Pakistan's industry.
Thank you for the wonderful sharing, Mr. Mansoor. And I think just to take, and of course I'm very mindful of time, and I know lunch is waiting, is keeping between us, and this conversation is keeping us between lunch and moving forward. I would like to bring to one last topic, and of course maybe that one is a little bit of a more easier topic to talk about rather than the heavyweight questions I've posed initially. Is to talk really about talent in the ecosystem. Maybe two parts. I'll talk about infrastructure first and foremost. Like for example, a lot of these enablers moving forward, especially when the companies go deep tech, go digital tech, there's a need for a lot of infrastructure to be available in country. So we're talking about cloud service providers, data centers in the region. I just had the opportunity to talk to the number 2 person in Microsoft in Dubai recently, where all the Asia CTOs answer to her, and she was very excited about what we're doing in Pakistan. She said, Sean, you are great, you're one big guy alone, but we need several big guys also together in the conversation to bring in these resources into Pakistan to further enable things. That's one part, and of course the other part is also looking at talent, right? I was very pleasantly surprised to actually see that Pakistan is home to Gen Y and Gen Zs, totaling more than 120 million in the population, more than 130 million, if I got the number correctly. There's a lot of young people in the country. And how do we translate the capabilities coming from the pipeline of talent in the universities? How do we translate this to be relevant, and how do we give the right infrastructure and opportunities moving forward for these generations who may not have the kind of financial flex and financial muscle to make things happen like the older generation do, which are probably in the opportunity position right now. Right. I know it was supposed to be an easy question, but it turns out to be a difficult question in the end. So maybe I'll invite Javed Sahab to maybe just tackle that question very quickly.
I was hoping for an easy question, Sean. Well, there are many parts to your question. So a couple of things on this. The first thing we need to start looking at is how are we shaping as a country from a mindset perspective of technology. As we enable a lot of this infrastructure, and I'll talk about that in a second, the final output is advanced living with a lot of data that leads to analytics, that leads to intelligence. And that, I think the contours of that we have not defined well yet in terms of what privacy really means, how data should be captured, how should it be leveraged, etc. Even though we are one of the most advanced countries in the world where every citizen is already data enabled through our own national database. It's actually one of the best in the world, and 40 countries about or so use our services. So I think that itself, mindset-wise, we need to start looking at. Second thing you talked about was infrastructure. From an infrastructure perspective, as we look at building these zones and declaring zones across Pakistan, many different types of organizations come to us. Some want to build infrastructure from a data center perspective. Some want to build universities. Some want to build other types of things as well. And if we look at these 48 areas, we try to see what are the actual infrastructure requirements, not just buildings, but there are two important elements that feed into a tech infrastructure. One's the electric power.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And the other is internet connectivity. Now, the good thing is we are sort of a pathway to a massive pipe that goes through the Arabian Sea and very close to Karachi, which you haven't been to yet, which you should. And from there, when we look at this being the enabling environment for that type of infrastructure, wherever that goes, these two aspects play a massive role in terms of the power as well as the internet as well. And as we connect more and more of these zones across Pakistan, we are doing this very methodically.
Right.
We're learning the requirements of each of these areas and then working with the local authorities within each of these cities and provinces to enable that as well. The last part you talked about was skill sets. Now, that's where we thrive. The number I throw is 160 million, but
Okay.
you know, I'll go with 130 as well. That's 60% of our population. If you add another 20 million, that's people under the age of 40.
Right.
But people between 30 and 40 are also very productive as well. So we've got a massive youth plus somewhat adult bulge that can partake in this as well. They already have certain types of skill sets availability. 30,000 students come out of universities every year that have some semblance of IT, engineering, etc., or technology degree within them. There are about 1 million already in the workforce. Pakistan is now the third largest freelancer country in the world. So if you look at Fiverr, Upwork, and some of these others, you see the flag all over the place as well.
Right.
So a lot of these pockets also exist, and with 9 or 10 incubation centers already in the country, 9+ zones already operating, I think already about 20 software technology parks from the Software Export Board already there. We have the makings of this. We're starting to build it all together and taking it forward. So a lot of the rails are already there to build what you're looking for in terms of technologies that emit a lot of data. And that's where I talked about the data part, that we need to start seeing how much of this is enabler of commercial technology versus national security versus other things like that as well. So we're on our path. We're not there yet. We've missed a boat, but I think new boats have arrived for us, or rockets for that matter, someday.
It's very heartening to hear that as well. I mean, that a lot of momentum is now happening. In fact, I mean, that huge push of talent, and of course, that's the reason why we're here in Pakistan is because of the talent. You know, we were just wondering whether we can have more Pakistani expatriates come to Malaysia, because Malaysia is dying of lack of talent at the moment, because we don't have enough graduates coming into that.
Line, so we were saying last week, so our people are already up for grabs, but they want to work here in Pakistan. Right, everybody?
You would have the last word, so again.
Definitely, no problem.
Continuation of what Javed said, since I was the board member of the Universal Service Fund, in 2001-2, we realized that there is a digital divide between urban areas and rural areas of Pakistan. So we brought all the telco players together under one platform, and we said we can build up an infrastructure in the rural areas, and how well we can define the technology spread in the rural areas. Fine, we created the infrastructure on taxpayers' money plus telco R&D fund, but then we have access to an illiterate farmer sitting way, deep into rural area, talking to his son or daughter who is doing a graduation in city, university, but we wanted to do some economic activities at that end, which has not materialized.
Right.
So yes, under the USF we have a lot of infrastructure in the rural areas as well, but it requires a lot of now economic activities which we had contemplated which never came. So there is one aspect challenge maybe we are working with the Anglo people, how best we can look at the farm sector, in terms of fertilizer, in terms of sensors, in terms of drones, and look how can we real time, because they take samples, they take it to the lab, they test it. By the time the samples come back, there is rain, so the soil is changed. So we wanted to build up a real time, sort of a monitoring system for the soil. So what I'm trying to say is, let's not create more digital divide in Pakistan, because you're talking about third, fourth industrial revolution in the cities, whereas we are stuck up in the first and second, in the industrial revolution in the rural areas. So one thing that can provide infrastructure development and rural development is what we had contemplated under USEF, Universal Service Fund. It's a kind of a public-private partnership creating infrastructure in the rural areas.
Right. And of course, to cap it all off, Asad, invite you to put a jewel piece on this topic moving forward and as a concluding piece.
Thank you, Sean. I just want to add on to what Masood Sahab said. I was in Balochistan last year, and what I saw there was something I didn't know actually. This Universal Service Fund that they created, what happens is that telcos give, I think, about 2% of their annual revenue goes into this fund.
Okay.
And out of that fund, there are two things that they do. One is they build infrastructure, IT infrastructure, in areas where it would not be commercially viable for telcos to go into.
Yeah.
And they've done marvelous work in Balochistan, because that's the largest province of a country, which has the least population. No telco would want to go there because it doesn't make economic sense, commercial sense to get there. But then out of this fund, they've been able to lay optical fiber throughout the province, and they have connectivity nearly everywhere.
Right.
And of course, with 4G and LTE and now 5G, you can then take it further. The last mile can also be done.
That's right.
The other thing that the other part of this fund goes into places like the incubation centers. There's an organization by the name of Ignite under the Ministry of IT that runs these incubators. They also fund different projects for development of technology for, of course, public good.
Okay.
So that's how this works out, which I think has been is a great contribution to the overall ecosystem of the country. And to just add on to what Javed Bhai just said, we have a lot of numbers in terms of boys and girls, young age, that can feed into the industry and also be the consumers of the industry.
That's right.
Right? Because they're the ones who need more bandwidth, right? We don't want to play video games with their children. I don't have time for that. But so they're the consumers as well as they can also, develop that technology. So what's happening right now is, in our case, we don't have the capacity within the universities to be able to train all of them in IT.
Sure.
Not that that's a requirement either, but still there is a requirement of so many IT graduates or people who can do work in IT-related services across the globe. So what we're doing is we have a lot of companies coming up, training companies coming up, providing training specific to the requirements of different companies.
Definitely.
So that's some very good thing that's happening, and if you really get to visit Karachi, which I would also second,
Yep.
we have a place at one of our technology parks where this marvelous team has put together a tech academy, training academy,
Okay.
and they do very specialized training for the likes of Microsoft and Google, etc.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's very interesting.
So I said, so that's one thing. So just to help sum up, again, I would just reinforce that we need to, as a country, we have to be aware of where the world is going. We have to stay in step with technology, and we have to actually target to go ahead of technology,
Right.
which is not easy, but can always be done. Like you said, in Malaysia, they were thinking far ahead back in the 90s, something that we used to do in the 50s, right?
Right.
And a lot of people don't know, we were doing thick film technology as back as I think in the early 80s. And then somehow because of bad government policies,
Right.
those things shut down.
I see.
So I think policies are always going to be extremely important.
Right.
There's a lot of good work that his authority is doing. Similarly, the other authorities and organizations within the country, policies that are being done, but still a lot has to be done. I again come back to this UAV policy is required. We have a few other policies also that have to be tweaked.
Right.
We have a ban on importing 3D printers in the country.
Yeah, we heard about that as well.
Right. So,
Yeah.
so we need to do something about
And
that.
it's a really important part of our business to do
that's
repairs.
important. We need to work on that.
Correct.
But then you see, we have many indigenous people. There are a lot of people here in the country, young boys and girls, who are making their own 3D printers.
Wow.
Right? So it's not stopping us from moving ahead,
Okay.
but it really is sort of impeded our progress.
Right,
for
right,
sure.
right.
So I think so. We need to keep working on this HR, of course, the policies like we said before,
Yes.
and infrastructure, like you said, is just so important.
I think very, very well said by all three gentlemen over here. So I think just as a very quick recap, we talk about the technologies that we have today, how they have proliferated within the infrastructure and the growth of the country moving forward, number one. Number two, we talk about what are the enablers for these things to happen at a regulatory level, at a policy level, and I think a lot of visioning is required also, and I think visioning will drive the right execution and direction down at the working levels and at the execution levels moving forward. And of course, last but not least, we talk about infrastructure and also the enablers at the talent pipeline levels. Of course, we will still try our best in Malaysia to pinch some of the best expatriates in Pakistan, but I know it's going to be a challenge. But we're very proud of course, to be associated with the right ecosystem partners, because I can see from today's conversation, you guys have a very good thing going. I know a lot of you all have said you're playing catch up a lot at some point, but I think with the momentum and the volume of the population you guys have, you can actually surpass very easily with very concentrated effort and the right decisions moving forward. So we want to be part of the journey, we want to support the journey, and we're also very keen to have this conversation, not just as a one-time, we want to have continuous conversations with all the gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen in the hall moving forward. And you might even be part of the ecosystem that we want to actually perpetuate here forward. So I think with that, I would like to actually come to a conclusion to our very short but very succinct panel session today. A very big round of applause to our gentlemen on stage for their insights, for their wisdom and knowledge as well. And of course, gentlemen, I would like to invite you to, as a little bit of a token of appreciation, just to give a bit of token from Malaysia, from Aerodyne, just as a sign of appreciation for your time here on the stage as well.
Questions?
Oh yeah, good question. So thank you for that. So before we end, and very silly of me, is to open the floor for a little bit of Q&A as well. And I think this is an opportunity to ask. Please, give me your name and your organization.
So I have a question for you.
Please.
With your experience with the USF, the Universal Services Fund, and trying to enable infrastructure and the rural side, you said that the economic activity was never there, never be generated. Was the funding a grant-based funding? And what are the issues, the challenges that were faced in terms of its
No, it was not grant-based like my colleague mentioned, because this primarily USF generated from PTC and R&D fund. So there are a lot of money collected, and then a lot of people, sorry to say, some politicians grabbed the money. So then came the private sector telcos, and the fund again swelled. So then it was turned from PTC and R&D fund to USF, because like you mentioned, the government wanted to put up infrastructure which is not commercially viable, and no telco was ready. So USAF set up towers, and that tower could be shared by all the telcos. But then when I was their member as a chairman IEEE Islamabad section, I was nominated from the professional society of IEEE as part of the USAF. So we wanted to do some local activities also there, setting up, data centers or, freelancing, and, to set up a small mini pre-incubation. We wanted to do some economic activities. But then, because of the telco funding, they wanted to set up towers, multiply towers, put there, and generate money. So it was a kind of a, dialogue between USAF management and telcos, because they held the purse, so they were dictating. So that's why the end point that we wanted, economic activity, that slowed down. So then that's how I mentioned that we then approached the private sector who were doing a lot of business on the rural side, like Anglo and others, Nestle and Anglo. How can they participate? Because infrastructure is there, but the economic activity is missing. You want to have local employment generated, want to have young people employed locally. So that's how the whole thing happened. And then from ICT R&D fund came Ignite. And Yusuf Hussain was part of our board member. So we spared him and he headed Ignite. So it was all a continuous process.
So if you allow me to add on to what he said, you see, it's like, you can set up a tower and give connectivity, but then if you don't have a road that goes there, and you don't have power available, so no one is going to open up a shop, right? So in addition to that, you need other things. That's why we call it an ecosystem, right, of economy. So you need to have other enablers as well to push economy forward. So places where the government managed to build roads, provide power, and above all, law and order. So that's where the economy or economic activity developed. Where we couldn't, of course, we still had the towers and no one wanted to use it. In fact, the local population there thought that these towers were there to collect intelligence on them. So that's one of the questions I faced when I was there. So.
Yeah, that's right.
My name is Shams and I'm from Taliban. So I'm well aware of the US and what you were talking about because I was managing it.
Yeah.
So basically my question would be like, we have a biggest problem of the energy in Pakistan. So with the AI, how we are dealing with it, do we have any plan in that? Because I think intelligence is not what maybe AI can work for something.
Right.
Well, power, electricity, energy. Yeah. Well, okay, I think my understanding of this is that, we are blessed that we have so much of sun available, right? But then I think it's our failure as a nation that we've not been able to harness it. And that's again because of not good policies. And let me just break that down further. You see, to be able to have solar use on a mass level, it has to be cheap. Now, how would it be cheap if you import panels from abroad? So you need to have policies in place that help you set up local production. Well, call it transfer technology, develop your own technology, don't say anything, just say transfer production. Longji and everyone else will not even set up their plants here. If you have the policies in place which say, okay, when you import a panel from abroad, you're going to pay 25% tax on it, but if you're going to make it here, it's going to be 0% sales tax, and the raw materials are also going to be, 0% rated. Automatically you would have, who would not want to set up a plant in a population of 250 million people? It's just been our policies that are not right. So that's how you would have more adoption of solar. Then you have this great wind corridor, right? And you would not be able to use it. Again, because of lack of good policies. And why is it that we've not been able to make good policies? Is because, in my understanding, is because of wrong vested self-interest of people making policies. Otherwise, it's no rocket science, is it? China developed its solar industry not by putting in money. They understood that they need so much of electricity. They said, okay, anyone who needs to put in a solar panel on his home can do it, and we'll buy it from you. That reverse metering or energy metering, whatever you call it, green metering. That's all they did. And that generated the demand, and companies came up and they set up plants, and there you go. In our case, what's happening right now? The government is making it difficult for you to sell back to the government. Imagine when you do green, this reverse metering, what happens? Your load on the grid reduces. You need to have bigger power lines from your sources of energy like hydro, etc. also go down. That means your cost of transporting energy would also go down. Again, it's simple. But for some odd reason, and also understand why, self-vested interests drive you crazy.
Let me add a little bit more factor to this.
Sorry, I'm going to forget something.
Okay.
For you at Telenor, I've got a company that we're working with, a European-based, who developed a hydrogen-based, system, and I would really like to try it out at one of your towers if you permit me to do that. Maybe we can, talk about this later.
Okay, let me bring in a little bit more to what he said, because I've done 100 more projects, mind you, on energy. The university, NUST, no other university has done it. When I was heading NUST Consulting, we did more than 100 energy projects on, we were helping out the Poverty Alleviation Commission. They gave us a target of replacing the kerosene oil in a hut, and then we did, and we wanted to bring in energy where there was no power already. So we did the GIS mapping. I was heading the Institute of GIS. We did GIS mapping. We had WAPDA, maps over it. So we selected villages where next 40 years or 30 years, no power line will go because of lack of cluster or whatever, So we randomly picked up 100 villages, 50 in Punjab, 25 in Sindh, and 25 in KPK. Balochistan was a very turmoil, so we didn't go there. And so we picked up and we gave solutions, 3 solutions we gave to the Poverty Alleviation Commission: solar, wind, and biomass. I'm talking about figures of 2011. That was my last year in NUST. A biomass was breaking even after 6 years. 6 years break even for a biomass, and I'm talking about a feasibility of kerosene oil bill that the poor man in the hut pays per month. That was our target to meet. 6 years, so no bank or nothing, no investor was ready to bring in the investment for a biomass solution. It was a local solution, no imports. So I wanted to bring in the economic side also, apart from the policy. And second was the wind turbine. We designed our own wind turbines, smaller wind turbines, 1 kV, half a kV for 4 or 5 hutments. Feasibility was 8 years. And solar, yes, what he mentioned, solar because of importing, solar was 9 years. So it was 6 for biomass, 8 for wind, 9 for solar. The Poverty Alleviation Commission said, hands up. We wanted to increase their feasibility from kerosene oil to something else so that, we can make it. So economics is also a very vital role. The only country in the world, I'm giving you a very tall figure, is Germany. They give 30% subsidy for any alternate energy project which anybody wants to do. Germany.
Right. Thank you for the excellent answers, and of course being very mindful of time, and of course I've been reminded by organizers we can take some of the questions offline to the lunch session, but maybe for the gentleman I'll just invite you for one last question, but also a very quick and succinct answer from our esteemed panel. Maybe just a last question.
No, let him ask.
Okay, just a last one, but maybe just keep it short.
So I can pull that in. From SCJ, question is to Asadi Council. Sir, since 2019, I've been maintaining a list of technology policy indicators in Pakistan concerning unmanned technologies, right? So I update it every year. So I'm just going to throw something at you. In 2021, Unmanned Systems Regulatory Authority was supposed to be made, didn't happen. In 2019, National Aviation Policy was amended. I can give you the exact words, but it said there will be a provision for unmanned systems, aerial systems. That's still out there. There is no framework in Pakistan for urban air mobility at all. It just doesn't exist. Pakistan does not have a regional or urban strategy for urban air mobility or ground unmanned mobility, self-driving vehicles. It doesn't exist. There is no policy there. Then there are no permanent national rules concerning both manned and unmanned technologies. जिनमें autonomy का कोई element है. Some tests have been carried out, but they are documented. Doesn't have any policy implication as such. There is no consistent national policy concerning unmanned technologies, both aerial and land-based. In Pakistan,
testing of self-driving vehicles is allowed, but operations are not. Because there is a rule that says that in Pakistan, for a vehicle to be tested or operationalized, there has to be a human driver or pilot on station with a minimum speed of 40 kilometers an hour. That is prohibitive of developing those technologies. It's counterintuitive when you're developing that sort of technology. No serious initiatives have been taken for optionally piloted or fully autonomous vehicles. I can go on and on, I can give you the complete list. Why is that?
Very short question.
It's just one line answer because
I gave you guys an option.
I should have taken the first option.
maybe at lunch.
All right. Stupidity on our part.
That was not even a line, that was a word.
Okay, but maybe we'll take this conversation over the lunchtime. It is a very...
Maybe we can tell anyone that there is a huge opportunity in airworthiness and monetization through airworthiness and unmanned vehicles and how much it can add to in our economy.
That's right.
Because it's like even thousands of players cannot meet the demand of the world, the way things are moving and evolving in technology-wise.
Agreed. The pie is very big.
And sir, because I have interacted with much younger people, than even younger people than me even, and I have realized this, that they are pretty excited about the new things. We are a generation, as you said, that we have adopted smartphones like this. If you can see within a span of a decade, we have adopted smartphones, we have access to technology, we have access to so much information that this generation is not relying on any external source, even on the policies. Technology would always be ahead of policies and regulations, but yes, it needs to keep up. Government and policymakers need to keep up with it, how the SOPs should be there. And being an honor of this organization where I'm perceiving.
Let me have one minute from my, when we had set up the GIS Institute, and I'm talking about 2003, in came Google with his GIS maps. So I had to go to the foreign minister of Pakistan to explain what GIS is, and you can't camouflage the parliament, you can't camouflage the president house. They wanted for us to camouflage a lot of things, so that the GIS map is not shown. I said, well, you can't do that. So I had to, so you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. The technology goes ahead and the catch-up is done. And so let's see whether BOI and SIFC can help out, those, one with the stick, the other with the policy, BOI. We meet them once a month to put some sense into BOI, how do we do ease of business. Yeah. Some of them go to the Prime Minister with our papers and try. So it's a continuous battle.
There's a lot of buzz.
Yeah, continuous battle.
Yes, like you said, there's a lot that can be done. I was part of that 2021 thing. I was helping people out with the policy at different levels.
That's why I asked you that question.
Yes, and I explained to you, you see, that got short because of political reasons, right? You changed, the minister changed, the other one came in, didn't want to do it, so that's more political, right? But then, like I said, I think it's not stupidity on our part. We should have done it because people around us in the region, what to talk of the US or the Brits, the Brits are always ahead of the rest of the world in aerospace especially. We have not been able to catch up. But then with NASTAP, like you said, SIFC, with STZA, we will try to put this again, be able to make those policy interventions. At times you need a bit of that blow that we are right now in to wake up.
So it's a lot of buzz at this moment in this country regarding this aerospace industry and its monetization. I hope so that
you have to now put your sergeant stick.
People like us, so that we can, collaborate with international players like Aerodyne itself and can help them to achieve and at our role in the economy and at our part in this economy. Because we are, as technology enthusiasts, very excited about the future. And our fingers are crossed how our elders are thinking thinking and how they are going to ease the and pave the ways for us.
We are thinking big. Aerospace industry is a $2 trillion annual revenue industry. So we should have some share of it. That's what we are fighting for.
Okay, all right, gentlemen, I think with that, we would like to cap it off the session. Again, I know there's a lot of exciting conversation. We can take it over to lunch because a lot of you will be involved with lunch as well. And of course, I think last but not least, thank you to esteemed gentlemen, and that we have on stage for your wisdom. And of course, I think we would like to actually move on
To conclusion remarks, and then we can go for.
All right, so I'll pass it on to the MC to guide us through for the rest of the session. Before, but stay in your seats. I think we do have a little bit of token, and
Sure.
we move on. I'll pass it back to Aga to conclude the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll just quickly call upon stage Mr. Imran Jazara for concluding remarks, and then we will be moving forward to a token of appreciation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shaw. Thank you very much, dear esteemed audience. Thank you very much, Dr. Sean, for this amazing opportunity. And thank you very much to the august panelists for enlightening us. And this is just the beginning of the discussion. We hope to start a series of collaborations or interactions through this session, especially with the telco sector of Pakistan, where we can take this forward to the next step. And I would like to take an opportunity, Dr. Sean, with your permission, we're stealing your show, that we want to make an announcement that as part of our NICAT endeavor, which is to support startups, in addition to incubation as the investment value chain. And we start today building up our investment value chain. And the first step of that is building an investor network. So we've called it Federation of Pakistan Business Angels. Shadbhai, if you want to write a check, you can write it now. So this is the beginning, a humble beginning of a new journey, which is investment value chain for startups based at NICAT and beyond. Thank you very much. We'll have a token of appreciation for our esteemed panelists, and then we'll be heading to lunch quickly.
I would like to invite our gentleman, Mr. Javed. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, with the Federation of Angels.
Right, second one, I would like to invite Mr. Asad Sahab for and of course, last but not least, Mr. Mansoor himself. Thank you for that.
So we'll have a second round of this. Yes, yes. You are
last 25 years.
Thank you.
Should we have a group picture or should we move on? Congratulations.